Okay, so clearly this one is the best of them all, like ever. Honestly, this one gets way too much hate. All of the films in this trilogy can be pretty cringy. The entire trilogy is great overall, and each film has its weaknesses, but this film gets the most hatred. So today, we're going over this movie for bad movies we love, due to its overall rating. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed any of these videos. Now, let's swing right into it, spoilers and everything.
I'm thinking humiliation. Kind of like how you humiliated me. Do you remember?
There was so much annoyance with this film. People said the writing was bad and the story felt convoluted, which I disagree with. We watched the three movies relatively close together. The writing and dialogue actually isn't far off from the first two films. There are some small moments where I'd agree, like when Harry's wannabe Alfred tells him the truth about his father's death by glider. You could have told him sooner. Or when Harry lost his memory and had a light chat with MJ at the Spider-Man celebration. The chat was super cringeworthy.
Bump on the head, I'm as free as a bird.
Will you bump me on the head?
Pop.
And don't even get me started on finally getting the landlord's daughter's name. It is Ursula, by the way. It only took a whole movie and a half to finally get that information. Many did not like the goth-style Peter, literally hated on. But it is one of the most memorable moments of the movie that is just simply hilarious. We also have to see a switch in Peter, who normally hides from the crowd, to dancing in the streets. These moments are so hilarious that even a small jive is thrown about his dance moves in the Into the Spider-Verse animated movie. So is it really that bad? We also have to remember that the symbiote is triggering his dark side or opposite personality to the forefront. The only way to do this is to be the opposite of a nerdy, kind, and helpful personality. Instead, we get a selfish or prick personality mixed in with the emo style. I guess instead of a dancing Peter, we could have just stuck with the aggressive actions instead, but where is the fun in that? Dissatisfaction in general about the villains was clearly made known. Having three villains felt overwhelming, especially after having only one evil villain really focused on in the previous films. It made sense for Harry, and honestly Venom as well, as this movie continued. The use of Sandman felt pushed, unfortunately. Honestly, I would have preferred a movie focused around him as the villain. Let's go ahead and break down these characters just a little. As I mentioned a moment ago, I wished more was just focused on Sandman as the main villain. Due to this feeling, I would have been satisfied without Sandman's addition for this specific movie. The use of having his connection with Uncle Ben was completely understandable, and we really liked that concept. It also completely validated pushing Peter's emotions everywhere else because he thought Uncle Ben's death was placed in a peaceful rest with answers. Now, Peter's life has been somewhat flipped. What was a little frustrating was the fact that Harry gets memory lost for a good portion of the movie. Just to become evil again, but then at the end of the movie, he helps Peter save MJ. It felt very construed and not necessary. The whole memory lost bit was kind of wasteful for his character development, especially since we have nearly 3 movies of his hatred build up. What they could have done instead is have Harry try to steal MJ's affection to make Peter upset or jealous while he was in his evil mode. They practically made it a jealousy war anyway. I do understand that this change in story direction for Harry was for a learning curve for Peter by the end of the film. In general, people complained about Venom, not just in height, but the amount of time on the screen. But the overall actor himself actually wasn't bad when he finally put the suit on himself. He had a reason to be upset with Spider-Man. His voice was a little odd and on the verge of screechy, but the biggest thing I felt was that his character never happened fully. We only really got Venom in the last 10 minutes of the movie during the final fight scene. Now, I don't know all of the details, but I do know there were issues between the director and the studio. Surprising, right? If we wouldn't have had this Venom though, how well would the first adaptation really turned out? I guess you could say this Venom walked so the new Venom could run.
I did a terrible thing to you. I spent a lot of nights wishing I could take it back.
I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want you to understand.
We quickly see how all the characters have grown in this Raimi trilogy. MJ is in the tabloids, Aunt May settled in her new apartment, and we see Jameson trying to watch his blood pressure and be somewhat kind?
Not that one. Not that one. Drink plenty of water.
Thank you.
Peter is making it to his college classes, and Spider-Man is loved by the city. What a great way to start off the movie. Quickly though, we see the characters develop further. MJ and Peter's relationship starts to fall apart from lack of communication and in some actions, jealousy. When Harry loses his memory, Peter sees this moment as having more peace and not only a friendship to rekindle, but a continued good beginning to his now improved life. In a way, a selfish seed has been placed. While the seed grows within Peter or Spider-Man of feeling like some kind of icon, he loses sight in his relationship with MJ and no longer listens to her when she's willing to help him out after finding out the news of his uncle's true killer. We see Peter not act himself. I mean, he doesn't even silence the radio. He simply lowers the volume. Definitely distraught, but most importantly, he's pushing his love for MJ to the side. During this time of distress is when the symbiote finally lashes out and attaches itself to Spider-Man as the host. When Spider-Man is transformed by the symbiote, he moves faster and feels stronger, even gives him a prick-like personality. I mean, we physically see his eyes amplify with aggression in some scenes. Because of his aggression being amplified as expressed and kills Sandman, he expects a certain reaction from Aunt May. She gives Peter her wisdom well of information.
He deserved it, didn't he?
I don't think it's for us to say whether a person deserves to live or die. Uncle Ben meant the world to us, but he wouldn't want us living 1 second with revenge in our hearts. It's like a poison. It can take you over. Before you know it, turn us into something ugly.
In general, the acting changes of Peter were done super well. When he starts taking on his bad boy traits, we see it in those small details of his eyes enlarging, the lack of attention he starts to give MJ. His responses get shortened and rude.
Listen, it's a free country, it's not rent-free country.
Leave me alone.
Give me rent.
You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door!
But some of the best lines are Peter's reaction to Eddie Brock's newspaper debut. Like, who says this?
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
What a seriously cheesy line, but it simply adds to the Raimi flavor of entertainment. This movie did well on setting up the villain stories and vendetta. Harry was a 3-movie buildup of his hatred. The symbiote was originally Peter's double personality until it chose someone more of his choosing, like Eddie Brock, who reeked of hatred towards Peter Parker.
I want you to kill Peter Parker.
The action overall is just a great and fun time. There were some great scenes, like the reflections in the glass were fantastic when Spider-Man's suit changed from the normal style. Like, I literally paused the screen in awe. Or when the symbiote is trying to separate from Spider-Man at the church clock tower whenever the bell rings. The complete desperation of remaining clinged to Peter was just awesome. In the end, was Peter at the church for redemption after slapping MJ in the face? It was just nice to see some slight changes in the villains. Harry still hears voices and gets flashbacks of his father after realizing the truth and no longer having memory loss. But we also get the multiple personalities used with Peter instead of just the original Goblin. I also wanted to mention the nice change of scenery with the trains. This time, the subway station was underground.
Whatever comes our way, whatever battle we have raging inside us, we always have a choice. It's the choices that make us who we are, and we can always choose to do what's right.
The opening credits were magnificent. For those who haven't seen the first 2 films, they get a small recap, but you can see where they are really pushing for the symbiote concept. Just the amount of detail applied is setting up for a good basis. It even continues with Peter monologuing on how the city is now safer, how Uncle Ben would be proud, and how he loves the woman of his dreams. Remember, Aunt May is Peter's well of wisdom. There are moments, as I have expressed earlier, that the movie continues to reminisce over Uncle Ben. It makes sense for Aunt May relaying to Peter about their love. She helps as a mother figure to understand this new development and choice in life he is making. We don't get much of her screen time in this film, but when we do, it feels important. I want to lightly mention Sandman. We get a side story for his family members and how he wound up in jail for murder that was not intentional. They really made him personable by having a reason to help his daughter who's sick. To even add an extra layer of his story, when he is in the pit and becoming transformed, the Sandman music is sad and tragic when he tries to go for his daughter's locket. The music is sad again when Penny is at a beautiful sandcastle and a small imprint of her father's hand appears. These little added details were not only appreciated, but helped us see Sandman for his reasons, his misunderstood story. The action in general was really well done, especially the first fighting scene with Harry. You can see how much they went all out on this specific film. The slow motion of the engagement ring was not only breathtaking, but it also made you concerned about losing the ring along with Peter. We can't forget the crystallization action that occurs to the Sandman's molecular structure. The breakdown of his cells and then the breakdown of his human body was really nicely done. When the Sandman is even stealing from the bank truck, we get the added detail of the foot pedal being weighed down by the sand coming into the cab. We, as a viewer, see the truck pick up its speed. Let's also not forget the added detail when Spidey punches literally through him. There were still quite a few hilarious moments in this film, which I swear is Raimi's added touch of comic finesse. Like the dance numbers by Goth Peter, even though cringeworthy, is still hilarious in the 2 moments it does occur. We also have the dramatic screaming and minimal sound effects when the taxi cab is about to fall from the sky. But we cannot forget the back and forth camera shots of the Sandman about to be blasted to water shreds in the subway tunnels. The Raimi trilogy as a whole does really well on hinting at deep topics while keeping a comic feel. We already learned responsibility and coping with PTSD. So what about this film? It is interesting to think it could be an identity crisis or self-doubt. He learns to be himself. Even though Peter and MJ are working out in the beginning, we slowly see them separating, especially when he intermixes his Spidey life with Gwen. When Peter realizes his responsibility to not only the city, but to MJ as well, the music picks up when he gets his Spidey suit from the box. He continues to learn revenge should not be in his heart. How do you feel about Harry's death? Would you have preferred Peter with MJ or Gwen? What did you think of Sandman and Venom as villains? Leave your comments below so we can further nerd out together. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that bell notification so you get our next video drop, and remember, stay nerdy and keep binging.